We just saw how we can use the docker run command to start Nextcloud. Nextcloud is a pretty complex web application with different components to it. You have the web server, you have a caching service and a database, and perhaps other services. We used one single command, but we still want control over the services we use. So let's introduce a new component of Docker called Docker Compose. We'll use Docker Compose to install WordPress. So we want to be in the root directory for this. There is a command, I'll show you how to get to it. Let's just say we are in temp and you want to get back home. If you go cd tilde, this will always take us back home. So now let's make our directory where we want our WordPress files. And we'll call this WordPress Docker. And let's enter the folder. Now we want to create a Docker Compose YAML file. That's the syntax it uses, so we will use nano Docker Compose. I put all of the data on the lab site. I have to copy and paste it here. If we were going to use this, we would want to put in secure information here. But what do we have here? We have two services right now. One called DB and one called WordPress. DB uses the MySQL Docker container, and we can access it using those passwords. And it also uses the WordPress container, also pre-configured. Because port 80 is already used on our server by Nginx, we have to assign it a new port that's not used. Remember, we used 2850 for Nextcloud, so we will use 2851 for WordPress. And this is how we connect to the database. Gives it the host, which is DB, which is the same as it is up here. This connects using name. So connect on this service on this port with this username, password, and the database name. So it's all configured here. You'll learn how to write this all yourself. So we'll save this and exit. And there's a tool that we will use to run this. It's called Docker Compose. We don't have it installed yet, but we can see Docker Compose version. It's going to say it's not found. So let's go ahead and do apt update to refresh our package list. Apt update. And I think we have some packages that we should install. So we should install those first of all. So 7 packages can be upgraded. So we can say apt upgrade. It's going to tell us which ones that they are. And let's just go ahead and do that now to make sure that everything is up to date. Okay, now we can install Docker Compose. Apt Docker, well, maybe. If we do -y, it won't ask us to confirm. Okay, it installed it. We can verify Docker Compose version. Okay. So let's go ahead and clear our screen. Just like we used nginx-t to tell if the config had a problem, Docker compose has a config command. This looks at the file and says, here's all the information in it. If something is not correct, like the indentation is wrong, but let's just say 1, let's just save this and exit. Try the config, it's going to say there's a problem. Line 4, column 3, it says something isn't right here, so we should fix this. So line 4, column 3. 1, 2, 3. So right there it is. Just need to keep it indented correctly. It knows the hierarchy by the number of indents instead of using braces or other type of thing. Okay, so let's verify our config is good. Let's take a look at the running containers that we have. We still have Nextcloud running from a previous lab. And let's look at the Docker images. We have 2 images. Hello world, which we don't really need. It's very, very small. Not taking up any space, so we don't care. And then Nextcloud is taking up 800 megabytes. So let's go ahead and start WordPress using Docker compose up, brings it up, it starts it, and D is a daemon mode which runs it in the background. So it's going to go to Docker Hub and bring in these images if they don't exist. So we're going to find MySQL 5.7. So we can look at this here. There's a Nextcloud, it did load. We can use it now. Docker Hub MySQL. There's a lot of other versions of these tools that we can use. For example, the latest one is MySQL 8, so we could use MySQL 8 instead of 5.7. This is just one of the long-term service tools. Okay, so it pulled everything and ran it, completed. Now we can look at our containers that are running. So we have WordPress, a database is running, and the service is also running in 2 separate containers. Now we're achieving separation. So it makes it easier to replace one or the other one. If something goes wrong, or we want to see some of the log data, we can do it by looking at the logs. So Docker compose logs, and it's going to display all the log data from the database and from the WordPress container. Just like we did before, we want to create a reverse proxy to it so we can access it. I've already configured the subdomain name. Just need to configure the reverse proxy. So we can nano etc nginx sites available. We'll call it blog.yj.com. And let me get the template data. And blog.yj.com. And again, we want to run on HTTP port 2851. If we try to use this on 850, it will just point to our next cloud. So we want to do 251. This is to our blog. So we can test this to make sure it works. We can go curl head is using Apache. Let's finish the work we had here. Sites available, blog, Etsy and Nginx, sites enabled, verify system control, restart Nginx. Now it's going to ask us for the WordPress installation. So now we already have 4 separate sites running on our VPS. We have a static HTML site for PHP data. We have a Snap application, Rocket Chat. We use Docker Run to install Nextcloud, and we use Docker Compose to enable WordPress. We won't configure HTTPS on this either right now because it will break WordPress. There'll be mixed content because WordPress thinks it's running on a not secure site because it's HTTP internally, but externally it's HTTPS. So we have to configure this to work with HTTPS, which is not going to work now because it's not part of the image. So this is it for this demonstration.